A new study by the Pentagon shows that both men and women in the military have somewhat grave concerns about the ability of women to be integrated successfully into combat positions in the military. So again, men and women in the military in this survey saying that they think there are significant potential problems to that. And this is something that's been going on for a few years. Efforts by the military to conduct additional testing to find out if women can pass the sort of psychological and physical requirements of certain combat positions, including special forces like the SEALs and things like that. Now, Fox News is getting involved in the debate by bringing on two veterans, one on each side of the issue, to debate whether or not women can successfully be brought into the military. Let's go first. Here is former Navy SEAL Carl Higbie, who does not think that it's a good idea.
And what else?
Well, I think what it is it's a political correct push from bureaucrats to try to push more women into a SEAL community that is not ready for, and I don't think it needs to be there when the lines of margin are so small, and adding another variable of instability is just unnecessary.
I don't know what the lines of margin are, but so he says there's too many variables already. It's a chaotic situation being there in the military. Adding another variable, not worth it. He doesn't really bring up the pros potentially to bringing them in. He doesn't seem to be considering them. It's just not worth it based on added complexity. So we're going to have a response by the female veteran.
The number one thing that we have to remember here is that mission success must always come first, not gender success.
Right.
So there needs to be this standard across the board standard that isn't reduced to a gender norm standard in order for women to be able to pass these tests. Women don't want that. Women don't want special treatment in the military. It doesn't do them any favors, and it doesn't do the military as a whole any favors. So I feel with the concerns of those who were surveyed about them being worried that the Pentagon might, cave to political pressure and reduce those standards. That's not what is best for the military at all.
Yeah, so I didn't intro that wrong. She does actually eventually get to defending women's position in the military. That is the pro-women in combat positions, Amber Smith, that they have on the show. But even her, this is basically balance on Fox News. You bring in the one guy he's gonna say in this next video, they have no place in the military. And then you bring on a woman to defend the position, and she goes on for a minute and a half basically saying, well, I mean, we can't lower standards, and women don't want that, and I understand there's a lot of concerns. Like, she's the vigorous defender. This reminds me of Hannity and Combs.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much so.
So here is his response to what she just said. I think we're going to get a little bit more Amber Smith in there as well.
Right, it adds an extra variable of instability, which in a career which has such small margins for error, it just is unnecessary right now. We're successful as an all-male force, and nothing against women, but I think that they don't have a place in there. And I'm glad, Amber, you brought up standards, because as you can see across the military, the standards are different for men and women in all fields, and it's only a matter of time before they push that into the SEAL community.
Well, I think there's no question that the dynamic of a group will change drastically once females are introduced to a sort of all-male environment that's been that way since they were created. But it doesn't mean that it won't work. And I'm sorry, but I don't think that the excuse of disturbing the good old boys club is a valid reason that females should not be able to try and assess for these units if they can meet the exact same standards that men do. I think it really comes down to the maturity and the professionalism of the unit.
So he makes the point that they have different standards for women in all other aspects of the military. Now, since that woman didn't push back against that, I'll have to assume that that's true, that he said that what he said. So yeah, I can understand the point that, hey, and she even said the mission comes first before the gender equality or gender success. So if women are held to the same standard as men are in a SEAL situation, I don't see what the problem would be. Yeah, I don't think you should lower standards. I always had a problem with lowering standards. I understand that there's certainly a benefit to having diversity in anywhere you are, but at what point does that diversity become a negative if you're not fully qualified? So I think if women are qualified, they should be able to do any job that they're qualified for. That'd be my position.
Yeah, I don't know how prevalent the different standards are throughout the military. But I guess I feel like I got to play devil's advocate a little bit. I mean, I overall think that, so his point was, we're doing fine as an all-male force. Why throw things up in the air or whatever? And I think it's easy for the group who is included to say, yes, there's nothing to be gained. But clearly people on the other side think that there is. I mean, many would say that the U.S. military was just doing fine before it was integrated. Better after integrated, though. I mean, someone could have and did make the argument back then, well, it's doing fine as an all-white force or with just black companies, not integrated. But that doesn't mean that there's no benefit to integrating. And it might be that again, people are making the case when it comes to like CEOs. Maybe there's something inherently about men that make them more effective CEOs, but also maybe not. Just because companies have done well in the past doesn't mean that bringing women in, even if there's something about them that isn't the same as men, doesn't mean that they can't bring unique benefits to the role as well. I mean, it's one thing to say we have these exacting physical standards that you have to pass. And I think in general, I think a lot of people are going to say, well, yeah, everyone should have to pass the same standards. But what if there's other things that they can do or bring that men do not typically bring? Like, we're a country that, like, if you want to be a part of something, if you want to potentially give your life for the country, the idea of some guy who used to be a SEAL saying, no, you shouldn't be allowed to, that strikes me as odd. It strikes me as un-American to not even give them the chance. And she brings up and says that she agrees about the standard stuff, but he doesn't. It's not for him. It's not just about the standards. Like, he seems to think, and it goes on, you can watch the full video, it's about a 4-minute interview between the two, that even if they could pass the standards, that's not enough, that they could potentially throw things off in terms of the men being more worried about protecting the women.
They've always said that, yeah.
Yeah, they do say it. So they say, in response, like, what would you feel you have to go protect a woman?
Yes,
or save her? But don't they say that they don't leave a man behind now?
That's the whole
Supposedly,
the point,
they
right?
endanger themselves to go save someone. So if you're already doing that for men, what's the difference if you also do that for women? That would be.
I think that's a watertight argument, John. I think you got him.
From a guy who knows almost nothing about the military. I'm sure that it'll be accepted online.
I've been to Afghanistan. I saw a lot of women there when I was there. A lot of women in the military in Afghanistan. I don't know exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
But they were doing more than I was.
Probably still.